My birthday fell on a quiet Sunday that year. I had turned 28. Not a milestone, not a glittering age that demanded streamers or cake, just another quiet tick forward in time. Still, I had hoped that maybe this time my parents would remember it wasn't about grand gestures, just effort, presence. A phone call at least. Especially since I had offered to drive down and spend the weekend with them, even sent them my flight info hoping they'd say, "Yes, come home." But instead, my mother messaged me 2 days before with a one-liner that might as well have been a punch to the chest. "We're keeping things low-key this year. Budget's tight. Hope you understand. Love you." Budget tight. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I stared at those words for too long, not because they were cruel, but because they were empty. They always were. Every year, I got excuses. But this one stung deeper, because I knew they weren't broke. I knew they weren't struggling. My sister Cassidy had just posted 3-story highlights on Instagram. Her Photoshoot week was in full swing. Designer gowns, golden sunlight over vineyards, champagne on a private jet. My parents were in those pictures, in first class next to her, clinking glasses like some celebratory royalty. So while I sat alone in my apartment eating takeout sushi and lighting a candle on a grocery store cupcake, my parents were boarding a jet for Cassidy's big moment. They didn't even call. Not that day. Not the day after. Just a lazy, "Hope you had a sweet day" text 3 days later, as if they'd missed a dentist appointment. It wasn't the first time they'd done this, but something about it being so obvious this time, so publicly humiliating, snapped something in me. I wasn't their second choice anymore. I was just forgotten, erased. Cassidy had always been the golden one, the dancer, the model, the one they bragged about at parties. I was the one with the spreadsheets, the job in finance, the quiet, "Oh, she's still doing that" daughter. I didn't ask for glitter. I asked to be treated like a human being. The week after my birthday, I got a call from Aunt Denise, my mom's sister, the only one who ever seemed to notice when I went quiet. "Sweetheart, I saw Cassidy's photos. I didn't want to pry, but did they really not celebrate your birthday?" Her voice cracked more than mine did. I told her the truth, but I think she already knew. She paused for a while and then added, "You know, when your parents ask for favors from this family, it's always about Cassidy. You should see the way they talk about you, like you're some self-sufficient ghost." I laughed, and it was the ugliest laugh I'd let out in years, not because it was funny, but because it was accurate. I was their resilient one. The word they used when they didn't want to admit they just didn't care. So I stopped texting back, stopped answering calls, stopped sending happy birthday messages to them. No drama, just silence. And in that silence, I worked. I had been building something quietly for years, a real estate investment that I never talked about. 2 properties turned into 4, 4 into a portfolio. I'd just signed papers on my biggest purchase, a gated estate just outside Santa Barbara, one with white stone, tall glass windows, and the kind of garden Cassidy probably would have demanded for her next shoot. It was mine. No co-signers, no family. No congratulations from them either, because they had no idea. But they would soon, and they'd regret ever calling my birthday too expensive. 3 months passed without a single word exchanged between me and my parents. Not even a thumbs-up emoji. Not even a passive-aggressive comment on Facebook. At first, it felt like I was punishing myself, waiting for the ache to pass, expecting guilt to kick in. But oddly, it didn't. The silence felt clean. For once, I wasn't auditioning for their affection. I was living. I was building. Meanwhile, Cassidy's face kept appearing on my feed like a seasonal allergy. In flowing dresses, laughing into the wind, flashing her fake white smile in yet another brand campaign. I unfollowed her too. I didn't need the constant reminders that I'd been replaced with a backdrop. Until one Saturday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. It was my dad. "Hey," he said, like nothing had ever happened. "We've been meaning to call. You've been distant." distant. That's what he called complete emotional abandonment on my birthday. I stayed silent. He filled the gap with a chuckle. Listen, your mom and I are planning something big. It's going to be our 35th wedding anniversary, and Cassidy thought your new place would be perfect for it. I blinked, stunned. Excuse me? You know, that new house you bought? She said it's perfect for the theme. Mediterranean garden. We'd only need it for the weekend. I could almost hear my jaw tighten. And, he added casually, you wouldn't even need to do anything. We'll handle the caterers and staff. You just be generous. You always are. That word again. Generous. Their code for take the hit quietly. I took a breath. You canceled my birthday because of a tight budget, and now you want to use my house for a luxury event? He scoffed. That was months ago. Don't be dramatic. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled and said, let me think about it. And then I hung up. That same evening, I called a friend who worked in luxury events and asked if she had any recommendations for security, surveillance, and privacy restrictions. Not for my safety, but for poetic boundaries. I had plans. I sent an official-sounding email a week later. Dear Mom and Dad, thank you for thinking of me and my home for your anniversary celebration. Unfortunately, the property is under a privacy contract and not available for hosting private events or media-related gatherings. I'm sure you'll find something fitting elsewhere. Wishing you a beautiful celebration. Regards, your self-sufficient daughter. I got no reply, but Cassidy posted a series of angry cryptic stories the next day. Some people are so bitter they'd rather burn bridges than be part of something beautiful. It was ironic, because that week, something beautiful did happen. My investment firm, the one I'd built quietly behind the scenes, landed a high-profile partnership, the kind that gets press. I didn't think much of it, until my doorman at the estate told me one morning that a man and woman had been trying to get through the gates for hours. It's your parents, he said, frowning. They say they need to speak to you. They seem desperate. I didn't go down. Instead, I sat upstairs in my sunlit reading room, sipping matcha, watching the footage on my phone as the security camera panned over their panicked faces. My mom's makeup was smeared. My dad looked like he hadn't shaved in a week. Later, I learned through a cousin that their retirement funds had been frozen due to a failed investment, and they were hoping to move in with me for a while, just until things settled down. They didn't know I already knew about their portfolio because I'd been quietly hired by the firm investigating the mess. I wasn't just the daughter they ignored. I was the financial analyst reviewing their numbers. The irony wasn't lost on me. They begged the guards to let them through, claimed they were family. The guard, bless him, asked me on the intercom, should I tell them anything? I paused, then said softly, tell them I'm celebrating a birthday. Mine. And I closed the blinds. It had been 2 weeks since they stood outside my gate, pleading with the intercom like strangers. 2 weeks since I watched my parents, the same people who had once told me they couldn't afford my birthday, now asking for a place to stay. And yet, the guilt I thought would come never did. Something in me had shifted. I no longer needed their approval. I wasn't starving for their scraps of affection. I had outgrown their table entirely. But the story wasn't quite done. It was a Saturday afternoon when I received an envelope, delivered by hand, sealed in wax, Cassidy's handwriting on the front. Inside was a wedding invitation, her second engagement, to a tech entrepreneur she'd met during one of her brand collaborations. The event? A private island ceremony? The venue? Booked by my ex-boyfriend's company. Yes, the one they pushed me to leave because he wasn't driven enough. The irony didn't end there. The envelope also included a handwritten note. Hey sis, I know things have been weird, but I'd still love for you to be there. I'm hoping you'll consider helping Mom and Dad get back on their feet. You've always been the practical one. P.S. I'd love for you to host the post-wedding brunch at your place. The photos would look stunning there. XO, Cass. That was the moment I knew. They hadn't learned anything. Not a single thing. It wasn't guilt that brought them to my gate. It was convenience. And Cassidy, she wasn't reaching out to reconnect. She was reaching out to use me. Again. They didn't see me as family. Just a fallback plan in pearls. I didn't reply. Instead, I made a few calls of my own. One to a journalist I'd met during a women's finance panel last year, someone who had reached out for a profile on self-made female investors. Another to my Aunt Denise, who had quietly cheered me on from the sidelines all these years, and who happened to still be invited to Cassidy's wedding. The article went live the morning of the rehearsal dinner. Front page digital feature, From Forgotten Daughter to Powerhouse Investor, How Clara James Quietly Bought Her Way Out of the Shadows. It included photos of my estate, interviews with people I'd mentored, even a section about the subtle financial abuse many daughters endure in favor of more photogenic siblings. Cassidy's name wasn't mentioned, but she didn't have to be. Every relative who read it knew. Later that afternoon, my phone blew up. Cousins texting, aunts forwarding the article, one even saying, "I had no idea. They always made it sound like you were just fine." And then a message from my father. "You've humiliated us. Your sister is heartbroken. You had no right to air our family's dirty laundry like this." But what he didn't understand was, I hadn't aired anything. I had spoken only about me, for the first time. The final twist came during the wedding itself. Aunt Denise, seated right behind the bridal table, recorded a short video. In it, Cassidy raised a glass, thanking her parents for always putting her first, with tears in her eyes. My mom smiled. My dad dabbed his eyes. The camera panned, and no one clapped. Just silence. Awkward, suffocating silence. Then a murmur. She wasn't the only daughter. And that, Aunt Denise told me later, was the moment Cassidy's face faltered. For the first time, the audience wasn't blindly applauding. They were remembering. Weeks later, my parents came back one last time. This time, they didn't approach the intercom. They simply left a letter at the gate. It said, "We realize now that we lost you long before that birthday. We were wrong. About everything. We hope someday you can forgive us." There was no manipulation, no ask, just regret. But forgiveness. That would take time. I didn't reply. Instead, I hosted a quiet birthday brunch for myself. Just 6 people. Aunt Denise, my assistant. A couple of clients turned friends. We sat under the olive trees in my garden, sipping mimosas, laughing about nothing. At one point, someone asked, "So, do your parents still try to contact you?" I smiled. They used to have a seat at every table. Now, they're outside the gates. Everyone went quiet. Then someone raised a toast. "To the girl who built her own gate." And as the sun filtered through the branches, warming my skin, I felt it. Not revenge. Not even pride. Just peace. And for the first time in my life, it was my name, my story, and my day. No longer the forgotten one, but the one who walked away and never looked back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.